Hi there, this is Jillian with Caribbean Caterers. And if you are wondering how to seat your guests for your gala, you're in the right place. We have found that people think you are having three, four, 500 people and you can just either let them seat themselves or just do a light floor plan and it'll take care of itself. But if you are indeed at all concerned about the experience your guests are having at your event, let's pay attention to how you seat your guests in the room. It starts way before you assign seats or tables in the room. It starts with the room itself. So let's talk about that. We are going to determine here today not just how to seat people in the room, but how to consider the actual space that you're in, the style of tables that you would use and how many people can be seated at the table. And then finally, how you can get them well seated for maximum enjoyment, maximum experience based on your gala, your cause, the things that you are espousing for the evening at this gala event. The first thing that one needs to consider is the room that you're in. There are really three views that we take of your gala itself, and we help you with this at a site visit about 2 or 3 months before your gala. And the three views in your room are the entire room and how many tables can fit in the room, what each table would look like in terms of how you would seat people at that table, and then finally each place setting at that table. And so let's start with the room of itself. Typically, again, you're thinking, I'm seating, let's use 300 for this example. So I'm seating 300 guests for my gala. You have to consider what are the tables that are available, how you want your guests to enjoy the time of the gala. Are you using just the traditional round tables that can seat 8 or 10 people? Are you considering long family style tables? And there are so many other table arrangement styles that can be appropriate for your event. So that's the first thing. The style of table, the number of people it can hold, and maybe if you're doing a single style of table or even a combination of types of tables in your room. Then you have to consider all the other, we call them amenities that you have to have in the room. Is there a dance floor? Is there a stage and a presentation area that is going to take up a good footprint of your floor plan? What about a DJ, a dessert buffet, a photo booth? You name it, there can be any number of things in addition to the guest tables that are in that dining room that you're seating in guests. Now, of course, if you're at a venue that has outer rooms, that takes away that issue where you may only end up with a dance floor in your room and everything else is guest seating and maybe a podium. If you don't have that ability, then you have to think about all the other things that have to end up in this room. So now we're happy with the room and all the things that need to fit in the room along with tables for 300 guests. And so you're sitting with a nice floor plan at this point, and we have the tables in the room. So what's next? Do we just put people in the room? Well, no. Again, you have another three options. You can do open seating, which is where you let your guests sit wherever they would like to sit. You can do table assignments, which is where you can assign, if you've chosen, say, 8 people seated per table, you can choose the 8 people that will sit at a specific table and assign people to that table. And then there's the seat assignment, where you are doing a place card on each seat that everybody has a specific seat at a table in the room. Let's talk about the pros and cons of some of these. First, the style of the event. If your event is super formal, you may want to look at the assignment by seat, particularly if you have people who need to be recognized either globally by the whole room or individually at their tables and so on. Doing seating assignment is a good way to do that and really suits the very ultra formal type of event. Seating by table is a little less formal, still formal enough, but you've got to find a way to let people know which table they're seated on, usually by way of a seating chart or some other visual that guests could know which where they're seated on. Now, because you're at a gala, which means that you may have people coming into the gala at different times. Sometimes they do that seating at registration. So when you get your registration packet, it also has your table number associated in there as well. So there's a number of ways to affect people getting to know what table they're seated on. And then, of course, if you have a very large room, you want to have ushers that can get people to the right zone to find their tables and so on. And the final way, which is the least formal, is the open seating, which is where you let people choose their own seats. Pros and cons of that. One pro for you is that you can forego the work that needs to be done to actually figure out where you want people to be seated, either by table or by seat. It's an undertaking, but it certainly creates a better situation on the floor in terms of people getting easily seated. So if you want to look at that as a pro in terms of less work for you, but a major con for that would be that people tend not to pack in to seats. So if you had 8 seats at a table, the first couple comes in and they're seated. The next couple comes to the table and they typically don't sit right next to the first couple. They would leave a seat open in between and leave one seat free and sit in the next 2 seats. It's typically what the average person does. And so on, another couple will come and do the same. So when the fourth couple comes now, there are just 2 seats that are not next to each other at the table anymore. And that's an uncomfortable situation. So that tends to be a con. With open seating, then in that case, that couple just looks around the room for another seat table that has 2 seats together. And what you would find after a while, if you had 40 tables in the room, there's probably 40 couples wandering around the room trying to find 2 seats next to each other. And so that's a major con in that people are a little put out if they can't find seats together. And at some point, there's going to have to be some intervention by some coordinator or other person on the ground to help these wandering people find their seats. So that's a major con of the open seating. And so taking on the work beforehand of assigning seating helps us avoid that situation, because people then would go to their table and amongst themselves work out how to pack into the table. And so that's a much more comfortable situation for the guests, because then seating is not a challenging situation. So those are the types of ways you can seat at each table. But then going on from there, you now have to figure out if you take on the option of assigning by table or even by seat, as you take on the task of then actually assigning people to these 40 tables that are in the room. Then you ask yourself, what commonalities do people have that, based on your organization, based on your gala itself and the type of things that your gala and your cause espouse, you might decide to put people together. So for instance, if your gala is getting placement in higher education for students who otherwise couldn't get there financially or educationally, you have a few educators coming that you've invited or have purchased tickets or so, you may want to seat these educators together to foster networking and relationships that could carry on after your gala to help further your cause. And so there are numerous things that you can look at for that in terms of how you then group people together so that for maximum benefit for them and for your gala cause as well. So another way that people tend to seat is by type of organization, seating similar organizations together. Sometimes you have gala attendees buying whole tables, and then in that case, you don't have to worry about seating, because then that sponsor of that table would then choose the 8 people that they would have at their table. So that relieves you of some of that if you decided then to sell your gala tickets by table for organizations, and then you just have to worry about the individuals who purchase tickets and their seating. And in that case, you may decide, I have a large number of people, organizations purchasing tables, and so then you can leave this small amount into open seating instead of the entire room in open seating. So that's another way to look at how to seat people for maximum benefit to your gala on the one hand, to themselves and fostering relationships that can further your cause on the other hand. And just, as people meet each other at your event and meet interesting people that they can confer with, it adds to the whole aura and enjoyment of your event. And that's what you're looking for in terms of creating an event that people feel very close to or feel very empowered by, because that's how you get them to come back out next year. That's how you get them to buy a ticket for next year at this year's event, which is what most of our gala sponsors are doing at their event in terms of selling the next event at this event. And that has to do, obviously, with your gala program itself, but it certainly is fostered by the experience that your guests are having, which also includes not just the program or the meal that they're having, but the experience that they're having just from the time they entered the door, in terms of being able to be registered quickly, being able to be properly seated, having a cocktail reception where they can meet and greet people. And all of this is involved with how you seat people at your event, how you move them through a cocktail reception and through a seated dinner reception. So I hope that was helpful. You found how you can seat people at your event for maximum effect with the guests, and also for an orderly transition from your cocktail reception to your dinner reception and program. And we hope this has been helpful. Be sure to call us here at Caribbean Caterers so that we can schedule that site visit with you to help you further foster this very important, seemingly trivial, but very important part of your gala planning. We are here to just make it easy for you and create a guest experience that you would want for your guests. So again, it's Jillian with Caribbean Caterers. See you soon.